Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. A UN commission says Israel commits genocide in Gaza, carrying out 4 of 5 acts defined in international law, including mass killings and starvation. Israel denounces the report as distorted and false. President Donald Trump warns Hamas it will face big trouble if hostages in Gaza are used as human shields, as Israel launches a major ground offensive on Gaza City. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it Hamas's last stronghold, while the UN condemns the assault. Robert Redford, the iconic actor, director and founder of the Sundance Film Festival, dies at age 89 in Utah. Tributes pour in from across Hollywood, with Meryl Streep calling him a lion and President Donald Trump praising him as one of the greatest. The US president also says the US and China have reached a deal to move TikTok into American ownership. He adds he will speak with President Xi Jinping on Friday to finalize the agreement before leaving for his state visit to Britain. Israel says its forces hit a Houthi military site at the port of Hodeidah in Yemen, claiming the area was used to transfer Iranian weapons. The strike followed an evacuation warning as Israel accuses the Houthis of targeting it and its allies. FBI Chief Kash Patel testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee, facing questions on the Charlie Kirk murder probe and his refusal to release the Epstein files. Critics, including Trump allies, are challenging his leadership of the Bureau. A New York judge dismisses 2 charges against Luigi Mangione in the killing of United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson, though he still faces second-degree murder. The case comes amid growing concerns over political violence in America. A Syrian military official says government forces have withdrawn heavy weapons from the country's south after deadly sectarian violence in Druze majority Soweda. The move comes amid Israeli strikes and demands for a demilitarized zone. Now we start in West Asia, where smoke rose over Yemen's Red Sea port of Hodeidah after an Israeli strike. The Israeli army said it hit a Houthi military site used for weapons transfers from Iran. This followed an evacuation warning just days earlier. Israel struck Sana'a and Al-Jawf, killing 35 and wounding more than 130, according to Houthi officials. Mourners in Sana'a held funerals for over 30 Houthi military media members killed in last week's strikes. The Houthis denied missile launchers were targeted, insisting civilian sites were hit, including newspaper offices. The escalation follows earlier strikes that killed Houthi officials, while the group continues Red Sea attacks in solidarity with Palestinians and missile launches at Israel, which are mostly intercepted. We are now joined by Ross. Okay, we are covering ongoing Israeli strikes on Houthi-controlled Hodeidah port, which controls the Iran-led proxy entrance to the Red Sea. We are currently waiting for our guest to discuss this further. Smoke has risen over Yemen's port after an Israeli strike. The Israeli army has confirmed this and it has said that this site was used for weapons transfers from Tehran, which is known to fund the Houthi rebels in Yemen. This did follow an evacuation warning, which was issued earlier today. And this comes just after days earlier where Israel struck the capital of Sana'a and Al-Jawf, which killed 35 people and wounded more than 130. Now those numbers come from the Houthi-run ministry. We will continue to bring you more and everything out of West Asia as we get it here on News X World. The Houthis continue to send missiles in what they say is in solidarity with Palestinians over to Israel, which are mainly intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome systems. Of course, these strikes are pretty common in the region from Israel. They have commonly struck Houthis where they see fit. The Houthis themselves have a limited defense capabilities against Israeli strikes. However, that does not go the other way. The Israelis, of course, have that Iron Dome protection system, which stops the majority of aerial attacks from getting into its airspace, and both drones and missiles are intercepted from hostile actors who do fire aerial projectiles into Israeli territory. Just a couple of weeks ago, a Houthi drone did make it through and crashed into one of Israel's most prominent airports. Although no casualties were reported in that incident, there was major damage to the airport, which led to it to being closed for a couple of hours. This does come after mourners in Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, did hold a funeral for the over 30 people that were killed last week in that city by the Israeli strikes. And the Houthis have denied missile launchers were targeted, insisting civilian sites were hit by the Israelis. We're now joined by John Rossomando. He's the president of Viking Research Associates and a geopolitical analyst, and he joins us live from Washington, D.C. John, we have news coming in of further Israeli strikes on Hodeidah port in Houthi-run Yemen. How significant is this strike in terms of disrupting alleged Iranian arms transfers to the Houthi rebels?
Well, this is just part of an ongoing campaign that the Israelis have been doing as of late to try to interdict Iranian arms shipments. One of the problems that Israel faces is that the IRGC has created munitions factories in Yemen in which the Houthis build these rockets and drones and then fire them off at Israel. So, they get one ship, one shipment, but it's a game of whack-a-mole, and it's really hard for the Israelis to eliminate.
Yes, John, do stay with us. We have further updates from the West Asian region. Displaced Palestinians in Central Gaza stated that the United Nations' recent inquiry into Israel's actions came too late. They emphasized that Israel has been committing mass killings and using terror tactics against the Palestinian people for a long time. Now let's take a listen in to what some of them said.
أن الأمم المتحدة اتخذت قرار أن إسرائيل ارتكبت مجازر بحق الشعب الفلسطيني في قطاع غزة. نعم صحيح، هذا الكلام يجب أن يكون من زمان اتخذت الأمم المتحدة مثل هذا القرار، لأنه طبعا إسرائيل ارتكبت في حق الشعب الفلسطيني مجازر جماعية بشكل يومي، واستخدمت جميع الأساليب من إرهاب وخوف وتدمير وجوع وعطش ونزوح.
بأن العالم يكيل بمكيالين، وأن الديمقراطية الأوروبية والأمريكية قد سقطت في وحل غزة. الآن أصبح واضحا للعالم بأن إسرائيل ترتكب إبادة جماعية تجاه الغزيين. هذا أمر أعتقد بأنه مهزلة حقيقية. لنا منذ سنتين نموت، دماؤنا تراق في الشوارع، أعراضنا في الشوارع، نساؤنا أطفالنا في الشوارع، ننزح بدل المرة الواحدة 1000 مرة، وما زلنا حتى الآن ننزح ولم يرنا أحد. اليوم رأونا.
The UN Commission of Inquiry's report was issued on the same day as Israel announced a ground operation in Gaza City. It concluded that Israel's actions amounted to genocide, accusing Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of incitement. Israel, however, rejected the report as scandalous and politically biased. We are once again joined by John Rossomando to discuss this further. John, there's multiple things to unpack here from this report. Of course, everyone sees the images coming out of the Gaza Strip. There are 4 out of 5 points here which hit the 1948 Genocide Convention against a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. In this case, of course, the Palestinian people. The points in this report included killing members of a group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the destruction of this group, and imposing measures intended to prevent births. Your reaction to this report? Israel says it's false, and the Foreign Ministry has entitled the authors of it anti-Semitic. Your thoughts on Israel's response to said report?
Well, I think the number one thing to start off with is the fact that the United Nations is a pro-Palestinian entity in this conflict. It is not unbiased. You have Francesca Albanese, the UN reporter on Gaza, ultimately supporting Hamas. I think that you also have to include the fact that the Arab states like Egypt will not allow Gazans to leave Gaza and to go elsewhere. I mean, so that's why you have such high of a death toll. Plus, also, Hamas has built military tunnels and facilities underneath the streets of Gaza that have been used for military purposes. So I think this genocide ruling is simply propagandistic and biased.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Do stay with us as we have some breaking news coming in. US President Donald Trump has said that the Hamas group will be in big trouble if they use Gaza hostages as human shields. Trump spoke as Israel launched a large ground offensive against Gaza City. Earlier today, Defense Minister Israel Katz posted on X, "Gaza is burning." Let's listen in to what Trump had to say. Okay, apologies, we seem to have some technical issues there. John, I want to get your response to this. Donald Trump threatening Hamas with his words. We can also bring into this conversation his response to Israel's attacks on Doha, Qatar. A light condemnation of Israel, although light it was very much there, but Donald Trump, of course, doubling down on his position towards Hamas. Can I get your response on how the United States could be involved in this conflict if it's not just to supply further military aid to Israel?
Well, I just look at what President Trump is saying, and I just hear it as a lot of rhetoric. I don't hear any substance of doing anything more to hold Qatar responsible for its harboring of Hamas, which began under the Obama administration. I mean, Hamas has killed American citizens. So shouldn't we be, filing charges to try to get those leaders extradited to the U.S.? I think that President Trump condemned the Israeli action to a certain degree, and even the Mossad had issues with Netanyahu's strategy against Gaza, against Hamas and Qatar, which ended up missing its target.
Yes, John, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. I believe we do have that bite. Let's take a listen in to the US president.
I hear Hamas is trying to use the old human shield deal, and if they do that, they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to be in big trouble. They put it out 2 days ago that they're going to use the hostages as human shields. That's something that hasn't been done for a long time. If they put the hostages in front of them, Hamas as protection, as what they call them bodyguards, Hamas is going to have hell to pay.
Now we move over to Europe next, where US President Donald Trump says Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky will have to make a deal to end the war, warning that Europe must stop buying oil from Russia. Trump blamed NATO and EU states for funding Moscow through energy purchases. Meanwhile, a Russian drone strike hit central Kharkiv in broad daylight today, damaging an educational institution and injuring at least 4 people. One university employee was among the wounded, and video from the scene shows a massive explosion in the city's Slobodski district. Meanwhile, Ukraine reported intercepting 89 out of 113 Russian drones overnight, while Russia claimed it shot down 87 Ukrainian drones across several regions. Ukraine also said it struck a Russian oil refinery in Saratov, while Russia targeted a Ukrainian gas facility in Sumy. Okay, we're now joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He is a fellow at the Hudson Institute, and he joins us live from Tokyo in Japan. Dr. Nagao, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. What are your thoughts on the statements here from Donald Trump and his new push to try and stop Europe from buying Russian oil completely? Do you think that'll work in this push for Moscow to finally agree to peace?
Finally agree to peace or not is not rely on just this thing, I believe, because this is related with money supply. But at the same time, money supply is only one thing to continue the war. So that's why this is important step, but this is not enough to achieve the ceasefire, I think. But anyway, this is an issue, a logical issue, I think, because in the past, President Trump asked India to stop buying oil from Russia. So now the President Trump start to call the same thing to Europe is a logical thing. And indeed, this is very tough choices because to change the source of oil, they need to find alternative source. But in the world, source is limited, and it relies on the supplier's decision to increase the production or not. So that's why view from the supply side, they want to get more money. They demand more money. If the country who stops to buy oil from Russia need to find an alternative source, in this case, the supplier side try to demand more money. So that's why in the same money, the receiver, buyer prepared, it is not enough to buy alternative source of oil. So that's why this is additional cost, demanding additional cost is not easy to find money. That is the reason many European countries, at least 3 are very typical, Turkey, Slovenia, and Hungary, but other also, through the other countries, the other European countries also import Russian oil indirectly. So that's why without finding alternative source, they cannot do that. So they want to hide this fact, but indeed now the President Trump asked them to stop it, and this is a big demand, I think.
Yes, and Dr. Nagao, what do you make of President Trump shifting the blame to NATO and European states for funding Moscow now? And of course, what we have to look at as well is Russia's current way of war, conducting a strike in broad daylight today to damage an educational institution. What do you make of this?
In this, it relies on the style of the President Trump's diplomacy or negotiation, because he loves bilateral negotiation to deal by using intimidation. This is the pattern. In this case, when he talked with India, he asked India to stop importing the oil from Russia, and now also he turned to Europe, and the same request, same demand as applied to Europe. So one by one, bilaterally, he tried to demand it. So the view from this, in the future, China's turn will come, I believe, because one by one he will change. So because time and labor power is limited, so one by one he needs to solve is the style of the Trump administration. So one by one it will demand the same thing, but every time country the Trump choose is different.
Yes, Dr. Satoru Nagao, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. We now move back over to the United States, where a New York state judge dismissed 2 criminal charges against Luigi Mangione over the December 2024 killing of health insurance executive Brian Thompson. However, Mangione still faces a second-degree murder charge. Justice Gregory Caro made the announcement after Mangione was brought into the courtroom. Mangione has pleaded not guilty to both charges in connection with the killing of Thompson, who was shot outside a Midtown Manhattan hotel during an investor conference. The crime has sparked national outrage, with public officials across the political spectrum condemning the act. Supporters of Mangione rallied outside the courthouse, with some seeing Mangione as a hero for his opposition to high healthcare costs. Trial dates have not yet been set for either the state or federal case. Okay, this is a hugely high-profile case in the United States when last December, Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, was walking out of a hotel in Manhattan. He was then shot by a hooded figure with a pistol with a suppressor on it, and then subsequently led to the arrest of Luigi Mangione, a man who has since become a cultural figure in very, very far left-wing politics. Some people have rallied support for him due to the fact that his believed motivation is the extremely high insurance rates for medical insurance in the United States, of course, which Brian Thompson was heading. This, of course, plays into the whole conversation of political violence in the United States, and of course, we will bring you all the updates from the courtroom as soon as we get them. Luigi Mangione, a highly controversial figure. 2 of his charges have been thrown out. President Donald Trump has been vocal about wanting Mangione to receive the death penalty. However, him being tried in New York does not make this possible. 2 terrorism charges have been now thrown out in the Luigi Mangione case. Okay, we're now joined by Matthew Verdum. He is an American journalist and he joins us live from Washington, D.C. Matthew, of course, gun violence in the United States is a huge problem. It happens every single day. However, what has captured the public's attention here in this case, in particular, in such a huge manner?
Well, a lot of people are unhappy with the state of the healthcare insurance industry in the United States. So when Luigi Mangione shot the head, was it Mr. Thompson of United Healthcare, the CEO, earlier this year, people, their passions about healthcare spilled over into that, and they cheered the murder of the healthcare CEO. And this is quite unfortunate and antisocial, but this is the way a lot of people on the left think. Just as when they cheered on the assassination, the murder of Charlie Kirk a few days ago. They are letting their political beliefs override their basic sense of human decency. So they are upset that this fellow, Luigi Mangione, is being put on trial for killing someone that they have directed a great deal of hatred at. In fact, Luigi Mangione has become somewhat of a folk hero on the left in the United States. There have been T-shirts made about him. There have been ballot initiatives, at least proposed ballot initiatives in California, named after him, and he is being praised as a hero by some people on the left. Now, what's happening is he's going through the early parts of his criminal prosecution, and I believe he's been charged in New York State with an ordinary charge of murder, and he's also been charged by the federal government, either under a terrorism statute or under a hate crime statute. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, those terrorism charges have been dropped now.
Right now, yes, okay, that's right. That's what just happened. The terrorism charges were just dropped. And I'm surprised that they were dropped, but because normally the federal government, when they lay terrorism charges, likes to pursue them to their conclusion, but sometimes they don't. But in any event, the trial of Luigi Mangione will go forward at some point, and then there's a question of whether a jury in New York City, in the borough of Manhattan, the heart of New York City, whether they will actually convict him, since so many of them are left-wingers, and they are sympathetic to his so-called cause, that of punishing healthcare executives for supposedly making healthcare difficult to obtain and expensive. So, they may get political on the jury when it comes time to voting on the verdict of whether to convict or not convict.
Yes, thank you. Do stay with us for our next story. We stay in the United States, where the New York Times rejected a $15 billion defamation lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump, calling it an attempt to stifle independent journalism. The suit, filed in a Florida court, targets the Times of its reporters and a Penguin Random House, claiming defamation and reputational damage. The lawsuit points to several articles, including an editorial that called Trump unfit for office, and a 2024 book titled Lucky Loser, which Trump says contained false claims about his financial history. Claims the publications caused significant harm to his business and personal reputation, citing a decline in the stock price of his company, TMTG. The Times responded, calling the lawsuit without merit and pledging to continue its reporting. This is just the latest in a series of similar lawsuits which Trump has filed against media outlets, including a $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and a settlement with CBS's parent company, Paramount, over a deceptive interview edit. Okay, we are now joined once again by Matthew Verdum to discuss this. Matthew, what more can you tell us about this pattern of Donald Trump and his legal processes with media companies in America?
Donald Trump has made it clear he doesn't like the mainstream media. He thinks they've been unfair to him, and he likes to lash out at them whenever he gets an opportunity to. And a lot of Republicans and supporters of Donald Trump are quite sympathetic to him in that regard, and are fine with him attacking the mainstream media. Trump here has said that he's going to file a $15 billion defamation suit against the New York Times, claiming that they've been engaging in years in a campaign of reporting falsehoods about him. The problem when you file a defamation suit and you're a public figure is that you have to take an extra legal step beyond what the normal person has to take. You have to prove what lawyers call actual malice. You have to prove that the media outlet or person that spoke the defamatory statement intended to be malicious, that is, intended to harm the person spoken of, or was recklessly disregarded, was indifferent to the facts and was fine, and didn't care whether they were true or not, provided that they hurt the person spoken of.
Yes.
So he has to meet an extra hurdle here, and he has said he has said in the past that he would like to make it easier for public figures to be able to sue the mainstream media, and his various lawsuits, including this one, seem to be part of his effort to do that. Because I don't know what kind of headway he would make in Congress having libel protections removed against the press. You've got he's running up against the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees the media a right to report on the facts and to speak freely.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure what the laws are like in India. In Britain, you can get, in the United Kingdom, you can get someone. You can have a civil finding of defamation, of libel or slander against a person.
Yes.
The legal standard is much lower. The threshold is lower, and you can prove your case. In the United States, the threshold is very high, and it is difficult to make out a case of defamation.
Matthew Vadum, thank you very much for your insight. Apologies for cutting you off there, but that is all that we have time for this hour. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.